What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be comparing the TCL 30Z to the Cricket Dream 5G. So let's get started. So with the TCL 30Z, we're getting a 6.1-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 281, and a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio. With the Cricket Dream 5G, we're getting a 6.82-inch LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 263, and an aspect ratio of 20.5 by 9. So on one hand, it's pretty clear between these two which one is larger. With the Cricket Dream 5G, it's really no contest. At 6.82 inches, this is going to be quite a bit larger than the 6.1-inch display we're getting with the TCL 30Z. So with the Cricket Dream 5G, this phone is going to be great for consuming content. So if you're streaming videos, viewing photos, playing games, no matter what you're doing, this display is really so large you're going to get a good experience no matter what. To put this into perspective, the Cricket Dream 5G is actually just a tiny bit bigger than the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, so this really is one of the largest phones you can get. In addition to just the size, the Cricket Dream 5G also has some of the best dimensions. With an aspect ratio of 20.5 by 9, we're getting a really tall and narrow form factor here, and this is going to be great if you're doing something like streaming videos in landscape mode, for example. In that type of setting, you're going to get a much more immersive experience, and it's going to look a lot better overall. And if you're reading an article, browsing the web, scrolling through social media, something like that, you can fit more content on the screen without having to scroll as much. So between the two, as far as size goes, the Cricket Dream 5G is definitely going to have a huge advantage here. But that being said, with the TCL 30Z, although this display is not nearly as large, I would say that in general, this display has a much better quality image. Now this is not very surprising since with TCL, they do primarily make TVs, and they put their same display technology they use in the TVs in their phones. So you're really not going to find a TCL phone with a bad display. And especially compared to the Cricket Dream 5G, the TCL 30Z has much brighter colors, the image looks a little bit sharper despite them both being 720p displays. So in general, if you don't really care about the size a whole lot, maybe you're not really consuming a lot of content, but when you are, you want a really good quality image. In that situation, I could see the TCL 30Z having a little bit of an advantage. But then again, there is such a big size difference between these two displays that I would say if you're primarily going to be consuming content, like streaming videos, playing games, that sort of thing, then the Cricket Dream 5G would be a much better choice. Now for storage, with the TCL 30Z, we're getting 32GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the Cricket Dream 5G, we're getting 64GB with microSD card expansion as well. So as you can see here, there's a huge difference in storage. On one hand, with 32GB, this really isn't that much, and even if you're just a casual user, it's probably going to be at least a little restrictive, because nowadays, with things like apps in the system taking up more and more space, with 32GB of internal storage, you're really not going to have a whole lot of room. And sure, both of these phones do have microSD card expansion, but you can only offload so many things, and you obviously can't offload something like the system onto a microSD card. So again, today in 2022, I really feel like 32GB of storage, even for a casual user, just isn't going to cut it anymore. But with the Cricket Dream 5G on the other hand, this phone has double the storage at 64, and even though 64GB for a power user, for example, may not still be the optimal choice, if you're more of an average user, if you don't have a ton of apps and games and stuff like that, then 64GB of internal storage should be plenty. Now, if you're a really light user and you're doing barely anything on your phone besides sending text messages, making calls, that sort of thing, then the TCL 30Z should be fine. But if you have any decent amount of apps and games and stuff like that, then the Cricket Dream 5G with double the storage is definitely going to have a huge advantage here. Now, one sort of unique feature for the price range the Cricket Dream 5G has that the TCL 30Z doesn't is wireless charging. So the Cricket Dream 5G does in fact support 10-watt wireless charging, which is definitely a more unique feature for this price range. Now, wireless charging definitely does have its uses. Besides just being convenient and great for cable management, if something happens to your charging port, if you don't have wireless charging, then you're just gonna have to either get it fixed or get a new phone. It's probably not even worth it to fix it. But with wireless charging, unless you're doing some sort of data transfer, you can use the wireless charging instead of your charging port, and that's gonna allow you to keep the phone for a little longer. So wireless charging is definitely a nice feature for a lot of different reasons. So if that is a feature that sounds good to you, then the Cricket Dream 5G is definitely going to have an advantage. Now for security features, the TCL 30Z does not have a fingerprint scanner, but we do get Face Unlock here. And with the Cricket Dream 5G, it's the complete opposite. There's no Face Unlock, but we got a fingerprint scanner right here on the back. Now when I have a choice, I personally do prefer a fingerprint scanner. I feel like they're a little bit faster and more convenient. and just more reliable overall, but that's really going to be up to your preference. Some people do like face unlock better instead, and it does work really well with the TCL 30Z, so that's really going to be up to you. But in general, I'm glad that with both of these phones we get at least one other way to unlock them. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the TCL 30Z, we got a water drop notch for the front facing camera. This camera is 5 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a single camera, and this camera is 8 megapixels. So really no features here, no ultra wide, no macro camera, nothing like that. And as far as the actual photo quality goes, it's pretty much exactly what you would expect from a phone under $100. Really not great. I honestly wouldn't use this phone for even social media or anything like that. Maybe if you're using Snapchat, for example, where the quality doesn't really matter, then it would be okay. But if you're really doing a lot of anything else, I would definitely go for a phone with a better camera. Now with the Cricket Dream 5G, we got a water drop notch for the front facing camera as well, and this camera is 13 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So pretty much the complete opposite here. The Cricket Dream 5G has pretty much every camera feature you could ask for, and not only does it have all these features, but they work really well. In fact, the photo quality for this phone, especially considering its price range, is actually really good. Now that being said, the photos this phone takes are not going to be anything near the level of a $1,000 flagship phone, or even a mid-range phone like the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, but for a really entry-level phone, the MSRP is for under $200. I would say the Cricket Dream 5G does take really good photos. So in general, it's really no contest here. If you're hardly ever using your camera, but maybe you have Snapchat or something like that where the quality really doesn't matter at all, then the TCL 30Z should be fine. But if you're taking photos you actually want to keep for something, then the Cricket Dream 5G is hands down going to be a much better choice. Now internally with the TCL 30Z, we're getting 3GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio A22 processor. With the Cricket Dream 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. So I ran Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on these phones, and with the TCL 30Z, we got a single core score of 166 and a multi-core score of 575. With the Cricket Dream 5G, we're getting a single core score of 545 and a multi-core score of 1666. So as you can see here, as far as processing power goes, the Cricket Dream 5G is much faster. With the TCL 30Z, this kind of processing power is really not going to be enough for anything beyond basic activities, like sending text messages, making calls, browsing the web, going on social media, and playing a few light mobile games. I have found Angry Birds does work pretty well on this phone, but other than that, this phone really doesn't have a whole lot of power, and it's not going to be very fast either, so if you're on your phone a lot, you will definitely notice this. The Cricket Dream 5G on the other hand is actually pretty fast for what it is. Maybe not quite as fast as some of the more mid-range phones, but it still will get the job done for most tasks. So if you are going to be on your phone a lot, if you're consuming a lot of content, browsing the web, going on social media, then the Cricket Dream 5G will be a much better choice here. In addition to this, of course, as the name suggests, the Cricket Dream 5G is of course a 5G phone. So if having 5G connectivity is important to you, then the Cricket Dream 5G is not only going to be the better choice here, but probably one of the better choices overall for Cricket in this price range. Now for the battery, with the TCL 30Z, this phone has a 3000 mAh battery, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't support any fast charging. And with the Cricket Dream 5G, we get a 4750 mAh battery, and this phone supports 10 watt fast charging. So this is really just another one of those areas where the Cricket Dream 5G is much better. Not only are we getting a much larger battery here, but we're also getting fast charging. So if you don't always have a lot of time to charge your phone, this will make a difference. Now with the TCL 30Z, the battery life won't be terrible, but it's still not really that good. It'll probably last you throughout the day if you don't use it too much, but if you are on your phone a lot and you're not always around a charger, this is definitely something to keep in mind because this phone's battery life won't be near the level of the Cricket Dream 5G. Now another interesting thing about the TCL 30Z is that with this phone, we actually get a removable battery. Now I personally really don't like this feature, the reason being, design-wise, it makes the phone itself feel so much more flimsy, but I will admit one advantage it does have is that with a removable battery, when the battery wears out, instead of replacing the entire phone, you can just get a new battery, and as long as the phone itself works, you can just keep doing that indefinitely. So I guess if you really just don't care about the quality and you want to get one really simple phone and keep it for a long period of time without having to replace it, then the TCL 30Z will have an advantage here because of that. But other than that, I would say as far as battery goes, the Cricket Dream 5G is a much better choice. Another thing to keep in mind here is that with the Cricket Dream 5G, we do get get NFC, so if you like to make mobile contactless payments, you will be able to with this phone. But with the TCL 30Z, unfortunately we don't have NFC, so if you do like to use that feature, then the Cricket Dream 5G will be the way to go. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, I would say in pretty much every way possible, the Cricket Dream 5G is a much better phone. The only place where I would say the TCL 30Z has a legitimate advantage is the quality of the image on the display. The colors look a lot brighter, the image is a little bit sharper, and the TCL 30Z, like all TCL phones, does have some additional display features to further customize your experience. So in that sense, I would say the TCL 30Z is pretty good, but do I think that's really enough of a reason to get the TCL 30Z over the Cricket Dream 5G? Honestly, in any situation, I seriously doubt it, because even if you're consuming a lot of content and you want a high quality display, the Cricket Dream 5G is much larger and has better dimensions, so you're going to get a better experience in that regard anyway. Other than that, the Cricket Dream 5G is a 5G phone. It's a lot faster, it has a better camera setup, it has wireless charging, a larger battery, more storage, and don't forget it does have NFC as well, so if you like to use tap and pay, you can with this phone. Now, one advantage the TCL 30Z might seem to have over the Cricket Dream 5G is the price. But honestly, as of the recording of this video, I don't even think that's much of a factor, because lately with the deals Cricket has for this phone, you can get it for easily less than $100, if not completely free. So in general, no matter how you look at it, I would say the Cricket Dream 5G is a much better device that provides a lot more value for the money. But this concludes my comparison between the TCL 30Z and the Cricket Dream 5G. Now, if you want to learn more about either of these phones, be sure to check out my full reviews and tips and tricks videos for them on the channel. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. But as always, I will see you in the next video.